All right. Okay. So we got Phil Geiger from Unchained Capital, and I was just I was just showing him because I didn't think about this at all. I just put this on today because this is one of my Bitcoin shirts, and it's like super comfy. But it was like about halfway through the morning, I was like, "Oh snap! I'm gonna be wearing my Unchained Capital shirt on our video today." But we got him, and we're gonna go through. We're setting up a vault today. I have been super interested to dig into all the multi-sig solutions for like hardcore cold storage. And this one has been one that I have yet to dive into. And luckily, happily, we got Phil here to break it down for us. So walk me through this thing, man, and welcome. I'm glad we're doing this. This is fun. Yay.
I'm glad too, Guy. Thanks so much for having me, man. This is this should be pretty fun. So, just for your audience and for people who don't know me, my name is Phil Geiger. I'm the director of product marketing at Unchained Capital, and one of our services that we provide is a Vault Concierge service, which is where one of our team members will personally walk you through either a demo of setting up a vault, a multi-signature vault, or actually helping you go through the steps yourself. We recognize that multi-sig is pretty foreign, even for those of us who are longtime Bitcoiners and are already holding private keys. And one of the things that Unchained Capital, one of our goals is to build a Bitcoin native financial services like ecosystem or economy. And the way that we do that is through private key ownership and unique or creative multi-signature quorums. So we'll go through it in the demo, and I'll talk a little bit more about Unchained Capital. But what we're hoping to do is build a more robust Bitcoin economy by spreading private key ownership out instead of centralizing it. So just like
Nice.
Bitcoin itself is decentralized money, if we're going to build a Bitcoin economy, we should be leveraging private keys, because that is true Bitcoin ownership. That's one of the most innovative
right here.
yeah, absolutely. One of the most innovative features of Bitcoin is it gives you the ability to unilaterally control your money, but only if you have control of private keys, not your keys, not your coins.
There you go. Dude, it's funny. This is one of the most fascinating parts of Bitcoin to me, is that because you can essentially split up key ownership in an entirely independent way, like if to have any of these services, I mean, think about it. Like you're providing like a near like a key custodian service without actually holding all the keys, without actually having control of the funds. You're able to provide a security service to someone else's Bitcoin. Like it will change this. I truly think this is going to change the nature of custody in the financial market in 10 to 15 years. Like if you don't have some sort of a multi-sig and you're not exposed to Bitcoin, I think it's going to be, you're not going to be participating, like,
That's
like,
exactly right. And that's sort of what the logical path that we took is
mhm.
if Bitcoin is money, and uh, and owning Bitcoin is private key ownership, then in order to deliver, money is going to need financial services, whether it's, secure custody or liquidity
Mhm.
options, or, inheritance or legal family accounts or business accounts or trusts, stuff like that. Like money, if Bitcoin is money, it will need financial services. How do we build financial services in a unique way that leverages the true innovations of Bitcoin? And that's through multi-sig. Like, and to your point, we offer a couple products today. We offer our Bitcoin collateralized loans, which I'll talk about later, but also our vaults, which the client controlled vaults are 2 of 3 multi-signature, where clients hold 2 keys and Unchained Capital holds the 3rd key. So what that means, to your point, is that Unchained Capital, you're not actually storing your Bitcoin with us. You still hold your Bitcoin. You're including us as a member of your quorum. And the
Mhm.
service that we're delivering you is the ability to leverage us as a cosigner for your transactions. We're delivering you a nice user interface, and we're there as sort of a security expert or a backup should anything happen to you or to your keys. We can step in to help. So yeah, it's a very a different framework than the traditional sort of account structure that we've seen over the past 11 years in Bitcoin. So the traditional account structure, for those who maybe are less familiar, is you set up an account like you would with a bank account, but you set up an account with a Bitcoin company. They actually hold your Bitcoin private keys, and then you ask them, to perform transactions on your behalf, and hopefully they accomplish those transactions. And that's how a majority of all Bitcoin companies are run these days, is where you have an account with them, they hold keys, you ask for them to move funds for you, and it makes sense that was how it organically grew, because that is the mirror of the legacy framework. When you have a bank account with any bank, the bank holds your money. They have the ability to move funds for you. You have to go and ask them. With this model,
smallest leap from the traditional model, essentially.
Yeah. Of course, and it
makes the most sense that was step one. Yeah.
Yeah, but what we've seen in Bitcoin is that, especially since Bitcoin is immutable and it has no ability to kind of bail people out, is if you have these account structures that aren't leveraging the native security of Bitcoin, they're pretty fragile. And I think, we've all heard about the big exchange hacks over the past decade. That for that reason, a lot of people think Bitcoin is actually insecure, right? They're worried about it. Like, how do I hold this stuff so that it's not hacked? Well, the reason it was hacked is because we tried to use the old model with this new paradigm. So this new model, which we are calling collaborative custody, is where keys are spread out, right? So Unchained never holds, or we never want to hold, a majority of client keys to prevent, if there's something that happens to Unchained, then the worst that happens is an adversary or attacker sees financial information. They still don't have the ability to move funds, right? So protecting the Bitcoin is first and foremost what we're about, and delivering financial services using those like enhanced levels of security through multi-signature.
Yeah.
So I've talked a lot
really
about
the lack of security and the hacks and all of that stuff has been not at all inherent to Bitcoin. It's been inherent to attempting to take the legacy system, the legacy models of security, on a pool system, and one that's based on essentially levels of authority, and applying it to a decentralized, immutable push system. It's like, we should have known. It should have been obvious that was never going to work.
and to be fair, I think Bitcoin is certainly a journey, right? And for the first step, like for a lot of people and newcomers, it doesn't necessarily make sense for them to immediately take control of private keys. That is something that you get to after you have learned what you've bought, first of all, right? Like making that decision to like buy some Bitcoin is already like getting through a bunch of mental hurdles. So you've made that leap already, but now once you own it, you have to learn about what you've owned and figure out like, oh, I don't actually own this yet. I have an account. And that actually teaches you a lot about,
they'll give it to me.
Teaches you a lot about the legacy system. Like I didn't really think about that until I owned Bitcoin. I was like, oh wait, this is exactly how my 401k works or whatever.
Somebody will give it to me when I ask them.
But yeah, once you take control of private keys, I can only speak for myself personally, but I wouldn't feel comfortable relinquishing private keys possibly ever, right? Or at least in relinquishing full controls if there's an option to still participate in the security of the funds. And that's really what we've kind of the basic assumption that we've made at Unchained Capital, is that once you've taken control of private keys, you're very unlikely to ever want to go back to that old structure. And if we look at all the Bitcoin out there, a lot of people don't realize this, but a majority of the Bitcoin, like I think it's something around 55 to 60% of it, maybe even more, is in fact held by individuals on private keys. So we always think about exchanges and Coinbases of the world as these massive organizations that hold all the Bitcoin, but it's not true. Maybe they have the most. Really. Yeah, they might have the highest number of users, right? But most of the Bitcoin, I think it's something like 11.5 to 12 million Bitcoin, are under control of private keys. So there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of Bitcoin that need help with financial services, inheritance, liquidity options, stuff like that. So that's what we're kind of going for.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing. There are two things that you brought up that I think are really cool in that is one is that we kind of like actually look down on that in Bitcoin, is that like, oh, only 50 or 60% is held by private keys. I know a lot of Bitcoiners would probably see that as a bad thing, but imagine comparing that to the legacy system. How many people, what percentage is actually in cash as a bearer instrument to the people that own it versus how much is held by some sort of custodian? It's probably like 97 to 1 or something, it's probably ridiculous.
No idea. Or compare it to gold too. Like,
yeah. Like what?
But yeah, I mean, we want to get it to as high as possible. And I think one of the pathways to getting there is making multi-sig as easy as possible. Like we've got to learn about multi-sig. We have to use the tools that are now available to everyone. And really we have to lower the bar for making multi-sig easier, because multi-sig is the current best practice for long-term Bitcoin security. We'll go through the demo and I'll show you exactly what I mean, but it removes single points of failure, so that your devices, which are good and secure for the most part, like these are no longer the single point of failure in a multi-sig quorum. And then, as I mentioned before, it breaks down that centralized tower structure that we have from the legacy system into a more, I kind of think of it as like a mesh, almost like triangles of multi-sig quorums just kind of spreading out, making it difficult to pinpoint single points of failure in the system.
Nice. Yeah.
Cool. So with that, do you think you want to jump into the demo? Are you ready? Any other questions or things you want to hit on?
No, I don't think so. There was one thing that I just had a random thought, was that particularly when somebody's like getting into Bitcoin, because I think this is like something that's so important to learn, like kind of going down the line, like as you understand what it is. But you talk about like buying it the first time, like, and you have it with a custodian, like you actually buy it from like Square, Cash App, or whatever. Swan Bitcoin holds it temporarily until you withdraw. It's funny is that I've actually come to think that it's actually better for people to buy first on a custodian so that they can get a little skin in the game, because I feel like that's the push that gets them to learn what it means to actually hold it. Like I would never tell somebody, oh yeah, go ahead and invest $100,000 and put it on Coinbase. But if they were trying to buy $100 worth or $300 worth or something just to get their foot in the door, I would actually recommend a custodian, just so that they are watching Bitcoin, they're keeping up with things that are happening. They're looking for places like Unchained Capital. They're looking for vaults and better places to buy and that sort of thing. And it gets them to think, I'm a part of this. Let me learn about it. That was just kind of a random point I wanted to bring up.
I totally agree with you. I mean, private key ownership is way further down along the journey than just getting Bitcoin. And it would be naive of us to pretend that, any substantial percentage of the world has any amount of Bitcoin today, right? So the first step is like get Bitcoin in the hands. Get involved, right? Yeah. Like get off zero. So yeah, like Swan, even to some extent, Coinbase, right? Like very easy on-ramps to getting people comfortable with Bitcoin as a currency. And then I know Swan has been focusing heavily on education, right? Like once people get Bitcoin and they have skin in the game, now how do we teach them about what they actually bought? Because Bitcoin, first and foremost, it seems like a quick way to make US dollars, right? It's like, it's an easy investment, like kind of seems a little scammy. I don't know. But the more you learn about it, the more you're like, oh no, this is immensely disruptive. And then you kind of move down the pathway. At least that's what I've found myself. And I can't speak for everyone, but yeah, like skin in the game, first and foremost, I think is really important. And we actually, so we recently published an article at Unchained Capital. We work with the Amber team based in Australia, and they have a similar sort of process as Swan, and as the all other DCA companies, but stacking sats make it really, really simple and easy. Amber is leveraging collaborative custody to protect funds, right? So keys are distributed, so they're not so there's no,
I haven't seen this article yet. I just went and looked it up here. Okay. A new one.
It came out just yesterday. I mean, it's not it's more of a like press release type article, but it is interesting to see sort of why they thought that multi-sig and collaborative custody was going to be a better solution for their
clients.
Nice. So good to hear from a few other different voices, I think. But
hold on one second. Okay, I think there's probably a squirrel far too close to the house, and they've got to take care of this immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Top priority.
But it's funny, like you mentioned, like that's one of the things that like I love most about Swan Bitcoin is that, well, they're Bitcoin only, so I don't feel like I have to worry about people getting distracted or lost in the shitcoin gambling game if I direct them there, but more that their whole mission is to teach people, is to educate about the whole thing. Is that, like, this is not about, and they even promote, like they push, make sure you're withdrawing to your own keys and auto withdrawal. And that's actually what I after we talked about this like last week, I was immediately like, oh, this will be a great way to get a vault with Unchained, but then also have a way to easy auto withdrawal, because I don't have anything that I'm going to move to this right now, but I'm doing the $50 a week buy on Swan Bitcoin. So I'm going to set this up as my auto withdrawal. So it's going to auto withdrawal to my Unchained vault from Swan Bitcoin. I'm going to be buying $50 a week, going into my multi-sig vault. I'm never going to have to touch it, never have to do anything. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's the dream, man. Like right into cold storage, just converting inflation paper right into hard money.
My Trump bucks.
The Trump bucks. That's right. All right, man. Let's dive into a demo here. So let me pull up my screen. All right.
Your account setup process, by the way, is like dirt simple. I actually just did it while you were talking.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Did you
realize I didn't even have an account? I just log like every day.
So you'll have to, so we are a financial service provider. So you will have to go through the KYC AML process.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you've done is you've just kind of added, created an email or created a username and a password. Now when you hit create a vault, you'll have to go through and upload, identification information. And once again, the reason that we go through that process is because we are a financial services provider. So we are using multi-sig to deliver financial services. But in order to, provide those services in the US, we do have to comply with KYC AML regulations. That said, we also do want to form relationships with our clients. So, I think the KYC AML conversation, there's a lot of strong opinions about it, and if it's a good regulation or not, I don't want to go into that. But regardless of that, we do actually want to form a relationship with our clients and get to know who you are, and because you're including us as a member, as a key holder in your multi-sig quorum. So we want to know you. We believe you should want to get to know us, and then we can better serve you and your family for your Bitcoin.
Nice.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's just jump into it. Yeah. At Unchained Capital, we're building Bitcoin native financial services. What this looks like right now is kind of should be pretty familiar, right? It's an account that you're creating with Unchained Capital. You have your username and password. This is my demo account, so I'll log into my demo user. We can set up two-factor authentication, of course. I don't have it set up on this account, but you should definitely get that set up if you're doing this for yourself and to protect your Bitcoin.
So that would essentially be the two-factor for getting into the account and redeeming the key that you guys are holding in the case of like emergency. Like, so that would be a two-factor just for the account?
It is a two-factor authentication just for the account. So we work with we provide 2FA in like the Google Authenticator form. So I think it works for Google and for other 2FA schemes that use the QR codes like that. But what this is just account security, right? So account security is familiar, but once you log into your account, money cannot move out of any of the addresses that you're seeing without 2 out of 3 private keys, right? Private keys are doing really the heavy lifting of our security. And the account, we want to keep the account secure, but the account is now not a point of failure. Whereas with an account where a custodian holds the keys, if somebody gets access to your account, it's very easy to move funds out of addresses, right? So that's really the like crucial difference between driving security via private keys versus account security. And yes, we have account level features that we've added on as iterative, security enhancements beyond private keys, but really the majority of the heavy lifting is being done through private key ownership.
Gotcha.
Okay, so this is our dashboard. On the right side, we have our loans. So that was the first product that Unchained Capital released. It's Bitcoin collateralized US dollar loans. So you can deposit Bitcoin into a multi-signature address where you get to hold a key, Unchained holds a key, and a neutral third party, a totally separate organization, holds that third key. So and then we can lend you US dollars using Bitcoin as collateral. So you don't have a majority of the keys in a quorum, of course, because we have to post Bitcoin as collateral to be able to use it to lend. But you have you're an active participant in the security of your Bitcoin. And at any point in time during the duration of the loan, you can verify cryptographically that the Bitcoin exists on an address that you control, right? So we're not taking the funds and lending them out to short sellers. We're not taking the funds and rehypothecating them. That's what that's called. The Bitcoin are stored on unique addresses under the control of 3 different parties for the duration of the loans. So that was the first product. We learned a lot about multi-sig and realized that we can help clients to just secure their Bitcoin by delivering a nice user interface for multi-sig. And that's what brought us to our vaults product. The vaults, we have 2 options, and I'll build a new vault today and we can kind of discuss the options. There's 2 custody models. There's this client controlled model where you hold 2 keys and Unchained Capital holds that third key. Then there's also this multi-institution model. And this is like I was saying, this is how loans can work if you want, where you hold a key, we hold a key, and a neutral third party. We work with a company called Citadel SPV today, holds that third key. The difference with multi-institution vaults versus multi-institution loans are the legal agreements. So with loans, you deposit Bitcoin into a multi-sig address like this. You and Unchained Capital have a legal agreement, and Unchained Capital and Citadel have a legal agreement. So Citadel will act on our behalf for when we're lending out US dollars to our clients. With the vault, that agreement changes, right? As a client, we have an agreement with you to always to co-sign on behalf of you as a client, and Citadel has a legal agreement with you. They are obligated to work with you as the owner of the vault. So for most of our clients, I think the client controlled model is what they're interested in because they still want to have full sovereignty over their Bitcoin. But for certain clients, such as businesses or groups that are worried about themselves as the single point of failure, right? If you're worried about yourself holding a key as the area that you're going to get, in trouble or $5 wrench attacked, then that model actually might make a little more sense for you, right? Like if you live in an insecure location, maybe you don't want to have full control, but you still want to have some control. So just something to consider. The client controlled vaults are no setup fee or storage fee. So as soon as your account's approved and you've gone through the KYC AML stuff, you can set up as many vaults as you want under the client controlled model and try them out and test transactions. The multi-institution model does have a setup and storage fee. So it's $500 to set it up, as well as a 0.25% storage fee annually. So there is a cost involved with the multi-institution model. We're involving multiple different parties. So that's where that cost is coming from.
Gotcha.
And just to to continue talking about pricing a little bit, under the client controlled model, like I said, no setup or storage fee. Unchained Capital will sign when we are asked, or sorry, will charge when we are asked to sign a transaction. And we charge $20 for individuals per transaction. So if you're requesting that we go through and authenticate that a request came from our clients and sign with our key, that's where we will charge.
Will y'all be published, like with the way this setup works, do y'all publish and broadcast the transaction, or does the user? Like, do y'all just sign and then I publish, or
you'll see? So
okay.
Yeah, well, we'll save it for that part of the demo, but that's a great question, and I'll circle back to that one. Because we're going to go through and build a vault, and I'll show you exactly how transactions work and talk through external recovery with Caravan and all that good stuff. Any questions about these custody models before we continue? Otherwise, we can build our address together.
Yeah. Let's just go ahead and build. I think I got
all right. Let's do it.
Know where we're headed.
So we're building a client-controlled model. Now we get to choose by default who we would like to sign transactions. So this is just a customization option. Generally, by default, clients want to control the signatures themselves. But hey, maybe you're going to geographically separate your hardware devices, in different states or different countries, for example, and you suspect that anytime you want to make a transaction, or most of the time you want to transact out of your vault, you're going to be asking us to sign. So this is something you can change at the time of signing. You get to pick who you want to sign each transaction, but this is just a nice customization option for your vault, and gives you the chance to kind of pause and think through, like, what's my primary use case for this? Or how am I going to protect all of the private keys that I need to in order to be able to transact. But for now, what we'll do is we'll build this sign on your own client controlled vault.
Gotcha.
Then we give our vault a name. So we'll call it Crypto Economy Vault today.
Crypto Economy Vault.
Boom. All right. So now we've gotten through the sort of account administrative steps, or the vault customization options. Now we actually have to build the address. So this is where we connect our hardware devices and actually upload extended public keys to Unchained Capital. Now, Unchained Capital never asks clients for private key information. So you should always keep private keys safe, secure, and don't share those with anybody. However,
well, the good thing about the hardware wallets is that there's not really any way you can't ask for the private key, essentially.
Correct. And I think what we've seen in the past is, well, that's mostly correct. What we've seen in the past is we've seen some attacks or hacks where websites will get spoofed and ask hardware wallet clients to test their recovery seed, which is entering the 24 words.
So people will actually just, oh God, that's.
So then they type in their 24 word list. And this is a good point though, is that your recovery seed, when you're setting up your hardware wallet, whether it's a Trezor, a Ledger, a Cold Card, whatever, you'll write down a recovery seed. That recovery seed is basically your master private key. Right? You can take that recovery seed, that 24 word list, and memorize it. You can take it and load it onto any other device. But that is the master secret that you have to protect. And if somebody gets a hold of that secret, especially if it's single signature, they have immediate access to your funds. With multi-signature helps a lot in this area by separating sort of the location of the Bitcoin from the keys that are used to actually move the Bitcoin. So it helps create redundancy in that way, but the keys are still very, very critical to protect. So there's a long-winded explanation of a key concept. Never share your private keys with anybody. Don't share your recovery seed with pretty much any website. Make sure that it's always protected on your hardware devices. Unchained Capital will never ask you for it. What we ask for is public key information.
Yeah, if you're ever setting up a vault on what looks like Unchained Capital and it asks you for your seed words, close the browser immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And just follow browser best practices, right? Like if you're working with Bitcoin stuff, like use incognito mode, disable extensions, confirm everything on hardware wallets. Like, you want to just generally be a good internet or browser user for all of these types of sensitive things. And I think there's no perfect solution to make people totally safe in every situation. So a lot of the responsibility comes down to clients being cautious and moving very slowly and testing thoroughly, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of responsibility still. We're helping with some of the responsibility, but it's still up to you ultimately to keep your secrets safe. So anyways, let's upload one key, and I already have a bunch of keys uploaded in advance. So I'll just do one key today. And if this was the first time that you were setting up a vault, you're going to have to go through and do 2 keys. But I will create a new key. And we always want to give our key a name, and we don't want to name it something like White Trezor or Ledger Nano S, because if you remember before, what we're really naming is that master secret, right? We're kind of, I like to think of it as naming my recovery seed versus naming my device, because as I said, you can take that recovery seed and load it onto any device in the future. Maybe today, the hardware wallets that are the best are, the ones we're most familiar with, Trezor Ledger, Coldcard, but in the future, there could be new hardware wallets that come out that are way more secure, and maybe you don't want to go through and swap out your private keys. You just want to take your private key and load it onto the device. Because these devices store the private keys and they allow you to spend Bitcoin using the private keys. They aren't.
That's like naming your cash like after brown leather wallet when it might move to your pocket or go to a new wallet in the future.
Exactly. So I give my keys. I name my keys after economists. I'm an econ nerd, so we're gonna go with Menger today.
Super and then nerd. I love it.
Yeah. I have to give it a little code as well, because these are my demo Trezors. So I've uploaded hundreds of keys with these.
That's funny.
So I'll have to also go through an additional step that you'll see. But today we work at Unchained with Trezor and Ledger. We are getting close to unleashing Coldcard support on the world, and we're really, really excited about that.
Nice. I got all 3.
There you go.
Right here, baby.
You can practice juggling with
nearby.
them. Yeah.
I can't juggle at all, so that's not happening.
Okay, so today we're working with a Trezor, so I'll select Trezor. If this was your first time doing this, you just hit connect here. What we're doing is we are grabbing an extended public key that is located at this location, at this BIP32 path location. Now, you may have heard of BIP32 paths in the past, maybe not, but what I kind of think of when I look at a BIP32 path is I think of this as a file location for an extended public key, or really just any public and private key pair. There's your master secret, and then below that there are different BIP32 paths or file locations that you can set, and then underneath that, totally unique extended public keys and public-private key pairs are derived. So it's called a hierarchical deterministic wallet, and this is how most, probably all of the modern Bitcoin wallets function, is through hierarchical deterministic public-private keys and addresses. So
is
that's
that
why.
When the path actually is that where the path came from? Was when everything finally went HD?
I believe so.
Okay.
BIP32 stands for Bitcoin Improvement Protocol 32, and that was I believe the original implementation of hierarchical deterministic wallets. Okay. Before that, your address was, you just had one public and private key at a time that you created an address with. This allows your devices to coordinate a whole bunch of addresses, right? So every time, if you notice when you're spending with one of your devices, and you receive change, it just grabs the next address because it knows it derives the next address along the list of the BIP32 path where the XPub lives. So it's all kind of a tree that funnels up to that master secret.
Yeah. So in a way, this is like just making sure, like the path itself is just making sure, since there is essentially an infinite number of public keys that you can derive from your master, you don't want to run into the same problem of having to keep deriving public keys, guessing which one it was. So you want the explicit path that you used to recreate the same public key. And I remember the days before HD was here,
Oh man.
when you had to refresh your backup after you use like, I think multi, no, what was, oh God, what was that wallet? God, I can't remember the wallet. I used it for years. It started with an M. It was a desktop wallet. It was the one that I switched to after Armory. But I remember when they finally did that, because like you would just like run out of addresses and you'd be like, by the way, your backup doesn't work anymore. You need to you need to redo your backup. And I was like, oh God.
Yeah, this was a very, very important upgrade to Bitcoin wallets and key functionality. But the reason that I like to go into this right here during the demo is because ultimately what it means is that you're providing Unchained Capital with a unique XPub located at this pathway.
Mm-hmm.
We have absolutely no way to find or no insight into any other Bitcoin addresses that are coordinated underneath a different BIP32 path. So the takeaway is you can use your Ledger or your Trezor or your Coldcard for single signature addresses and multi-signature addresses without revealing too much financial information, right? With just an XPub, we can't move Bitcoin, but we can see the movement of Bitcoin, right? We can see all the addresses below the XPub.
Mm-hmm.
So just something to keep in mind. It's okay to share XPubs with trusted parties because they can see the transactions, but they can't move any of the Bitcoin. But don't go sharing them with everybody. You still want to keep your XPubs relatively safe. And the other reason I like to go into this is because since this is a demo device, I've already uploaded a bunch of keys. I've already used this pathway. I have to actually pick a unique location for an extended public key. So I'm just grabbing an extended public key at M450142. If this was your first time setting up your vault, you wouldn't need to do this. You just hit 0. That's the multi-signature standard for the type of multi-signature address that we're creating.
I'm curious, what's the limit on like how high can you go with that number 142? Like what's the max limit on that? Is there one?
I believe that there is one. I'm not sure. We'd have to check with our engineers, and I'm sure that there's different meanings for different segments of the BIP32 path, right? So your standard like legacy single signature wallet is at M4400. And if you want to play around with testnet, the standard is M40. Testnet multisig would be M45-1, right? So this segment here is the 0 there is indicating that it is mainnet versus a 1, which indicates that it's testnet. So there are kind of emerging standards with these BIP32 paths, and we just try to follow them to make our vaults as compatible with other tools as possible. So this is totally a unique XPub that I'm grabbing just for this demo, but the default one is a standard XPub that multi-signature uses. So you'll notice that for example, Electrum uses it from M4500, and if you're using a P2SH address. So okay, let's connect to Trezor and actually grab that XPub. So as you can see, we're taken away from Unchained Capital, and we're talking directly with Trezor Connect, where it's asking us if we want to export a public key. And we want to give Unchained permission to take an XPub so that we can build our address. And as you can see, my white Trezor here has spit out this unique XPub at this pathway. So if I change this to 143, the XPub would be totally different. If I had put it at 0, it would have been a completely different XPub. All right, so we will create Menger. Voila. Now, so that's how to create it with a Trezor. A Ledger works somewhat similarly. When you plug in your Ledger, you select Ledger on Unchained, you open up your Bitcoin app. select connect to Ledger. The Ledger will say, hey, are you sure you want to grab an extended public key from this location, this BIP32 path? And you click through that and you say yes, and then it spits out an XPub just like you've seen, and then you can hit create.
Nice.
What I'll
I
do
just
now,
set up my Trezor. I got approved while we were sitting here talking.
Oh, beautiful.
And so I just did this, and I've got Trezor online. So.
Oh, okay, great. I'll give you a moment then to go through the Ledger workflow. Yeah, it's pretty cool to see how multi-signature works on the different hardware devices as well. So one of the unique challenges and one of the problems that we run into with dealing with multi-sig is that it's so new still that there aren't good standards, and each hardware wallet kind of interacts with it a little bit differently. What we're excited for is partially signed Bitcoin transactions. So that's kind of an emerging standard as well that's coming out that allows for hardware devices to coordinate signing multi-signature transactions offline or air-gapped. So all of those standardization tools are going to help make Bitcoin overall more secure and more robust.
Nice.
While you're doing that, I'll pair Menger with another key that I have. So we'll pair Menger with who we're going to do today. We'll do
Confirm.
Friedman. I don't know if they would get along in real life, but we're going to pair them together in a multi-sig quorum.
Oh, that's funny. I'm totally using that same. I'm stealing the hell out of your nerdy, like name them by economists. And
yeah, you just have to make sure that you remember which recovery seed is which economist.
Oh, I know which one. I know which one of these is which economist. Don't worry.
Good.
Don't worry.
Yeah. So I guess while you're doing that as well, I can talk through our approach here. So we recommend that clients hold both the hardware wallets as well as the recovery seeds to each. One of the reasons that we feel that that's important is because today's best practice for hardware devices might not be tomorrow's best practice for hardware devices. So we've seen in the past certain hardware manufacturers, I think maybe even all of them, have run into bugs, right? And they've had to fix them. So we always want to make sure that our devices are updated, and we always want to make sure that we have the flexibility to recover our master private key should anything happen to the devices in the future.
Yeah.
So as a result, in a 2 of 3 vault, what you'll be protecting are 4 unique objects, right? 2 hardware wallets, 2 recovery seeds. What's nice about having Unchained as part of your quorum is that now you can lose up to 3 objects and still we're able to recover funds, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of redundancy there. There's more objects to protect, and we're always kind of on this pendulum of usability versus complexity and security. It's there's just constantly trade-offs that you have to make for everything. But we feel that this is the best trade-off for the amount of security that you're getting additionally by moving to multi-sig.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, you were right. It's funny you mentioned just before we started this about like how the ledger is a little bit odd about it, and the timeout was like really short. Because I didn't quite make it all the way through before on the first round before ledger timed out, and it was like, nope, you got to restart. And I was a little unsure because it said unusual path or whatever it was on the thing. But yeah, it was mostly I wasn't clicking through fast enough.
Yeah, we're also constantly working to improve the functionality, and we're working with the hardware wallet manufacturers to try to make it more usable, as well as maintain the right level of security. So we always want to be very transparent, or like one of our goals is to be as transparent as possible about what's happening during each step along the way, so that you can confirm on the devices, and so there's a little bit of a timeout thing that you got to go through with the ledger, but I'm glad you were able to get through it. And now we can create our vault here.
All right.
So we're pairing Menger, Friedman, and Unchained Capital. We'll read our vault service agreement, of course, and we will create our vault. And
I
just
just
like
read the whole thing while we were.
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, speed reader. I know you've been doing a lot of reading, guy, but that's that's really impressive.
I gotta tell you, I got practice.
Sweet. And yeah, with that, we've created a vault. You can now see your address. So this is a unique address that's been constructed with the public keys from these three XPubs that we've uploaded.
Just got an email from Unchained Capital. Congratulations,
you
created a vault.
All right, welcome, guy.
Yes, indeed.
And then, yeah, so you can kind of view this address on any Block Explorer. We link to blockstream.info. We tend to trust them, but you can obviously check on your full node or with another Block Explorer that you would prefer. But always good to just check, yep, this is a fresh address. And yeah, we also have engineered around as many edge cases as we can kind of think up. So for all of our products and services, whether it's a vault or even a loan, we want to give our clients enough information where if something catastrophic happens to Unchained Capital, like our website is down for any reason, as long as you're saving this external spend information, you have a channel to spend your funds. Because remember from the beginning of our conversation, you are actually holding your funds because you have 2 out of 3 keys. We are delivering this user interface and the ability to help to facilitate transactions through co-signatures, as well as the financial services that we offer. So,
nice. Okay.
So yeah, this external spending information, and this is a good teachable moment as well. This information here, the redeem script and BIP32 paths, I think of this stuff as like the treasure map that helps you to find the treasure, which is located at this address. And these keys are now just keys to unlock and open the treasure chest.
Okay.
So that's kind of a silly metaphor, I think, but the implications are pretty large. Like now that you have a multi-signature address, if somebody gets a hold of one Trezor or either your Trezor or your ledger, all they have is a key. Like imagine just picking up a key off the ground. Like you have no idea where the key can be used, right?
No idea if it's a car key, house key, like
exactly.
No idea.
You need the map, the treasure map, to actually find where you can use the key. And to go into this a little bit further, we so we provide our clients with the external spending information here. And we developed a really, really elegant, I think, open source tool that anyone can use, not just for Unchained vaults, but just to play around with multi-signature in general, called Caravan. So we link directly to Caravan here, where you can paste in your redeem script. And as you can see, the redeem script, when translated, turns into your address. Yep. So this is
just hosted on GitHub? This is just y'all's GitHub page?
Yep. So this is, once again, not Unchained Capital's site anymore. This is on GitHub. So if you're a technically savvy user, you can go to the source code, create your own copy, host your own local version. You can connect Caravan with your full node, so that you're not trusting really anybody. And you can, you can build Bitcoin addresses with it. You can spend it using this tab. But for our vault clients, this is the channel for going through to spend externally should anything happen. So let me just real quick talk through the different components here. So as you can see, the redeem script, when translated, turns into this address, right? 3QI, which you can confirm here. But further, and what I think is really interesting about the redeem script is that it is, when translated, tells you that this is a 2 out of 3 multi-sig address. And then it shows you that this address was built using public key 1 here, public key 2, and public key 3. So these are the 3 public keys that have been used to construct your address, which is then turned into this script. So all of that information is just contained in the redeem script. So awesome. Pretty cool. You can confirm that that your device owns one of these public keys by plugging it in and hit confirm ownership. You can also spend from this address. Of course, we don't have any funds in it yet. But yeah, Caravan's a very nifty tool. And then further, if you just want to learn about multisig, on the create tab here, you can build your own multi-sig addresses off on your own. You can make it a 1 of 2 if you have just 2 devices. You can make it a 1 of, or 3 of 7, right? If you have 7 devices, you can test it with the different types of addresses. So a native SegWit address, you can create it on testnet or mainnet. This tool gives you a lot
That's
of
awesome.
flexibility, to learn how to learn about multi-sig, right? So,
Yeah.
And just since we're talking about it, what I'll do now is just really quickly build a 1 of 2 native SegWit multi-sig address using my Trezors, right? So I'm just going to grab the defaults here. As you can see, the default for native SegWit is the default BIP32 path for native SegWit is a little bit different, and I'll show you what I mean. A little different than the P2SH BIP32 path. So I just imported a public key at this BIP32 path. So that's the default, like I said, for native SegWit.
After this process is over, will you have again the same thing that you basically have for the external spending information? You'll have a redeem script and your path to just keep track of. Okay, cool.
Exactly. So we've now, I uploaded these keys, and we don't really know which order to put the public keys in, but we've got that covered for you. So this is the order you should be following according to the BIP67 standard. And then here's our address, right? If you want,
quick question. This is a little random, just about the BIP32 path. But like I noticed, like one of them will use like default, like the 43, and then like I think this one used the 4400, and this one uses 48. Does it automatically like pick a new one every time? Like, does the Trezor actually cycle through the paths?
Okay, so the beginning of the BIP32 path here. So this is M48. This is the BEC32 standard, is to start with M48002, right?
Okay.
The P2SH standard is
this is P2WSH.
Yep.
Okay.
M4500, right?
Kind of the type of the type of key, of public key.
Yep. Okay. They're unique depending on what type of address you're building. So, partially wrapped SegWit address is going to have even a different BIP32 path.
I didn't even catch that you selected the different one over there. I was playing with my toys. Okay.
But Caravan, for your listeners or viewers, like if you just want to learn about multi-sig, don't want to involve any company or anyone in your quorum, like Caravan is a super easy way to learn about how multi-sig works, right? In just 2 minutes, I created a BEC32 SegWit address. I can now, send some funds there, test it out, and just learn about how multi-sig works. So we want to make multi-sig ubiquitous because, as I said, we think it's the most secure way to store Bitcoin long-term. But anyways, we've gotten way off track now. But that is the external spending with Caravan. And as you can see down here, we've derived some even further. Like this is the first actual public key that we've grabbed from from Menger and Friedman. So the XPub lived at 142 and 117, and the actual public key lives down here at this path.
Sweet.
Yeah, so the BIP32 paths are kind of a mind bender for me, at least, but you can learn a lot about what's happening behind the scenes, and they're used for single sig and multi-sig. It just, I think, becomes important to learn a little bit more about what's happening when you move to multi-sig, because you are increasing the complexity. But from my perspective, the security benefit that you gain is definitely worth it. And just to recap the security benefit, the primary benefit I see is that you are now no longer, there's no longer a single point of failure in your security system. If somebody gets a hold of your external spend information, they have no way to move your funds. Yes, they can see your address, they can see your balance, they can't move the funds. If they get access to both keys, but don't have access to the external spend information, they have no way of even seeing that where your Bitcoin is. So, they have to make a bunch of different assumptions when they find one of these on the ground now. They have to find it. The first thing that they're going to try to do, very likely, is try to break into your hardware wallet, or, if they find a recovery seed, they're going to try to look for it, the Bitcoin on single signature addresses. With multi-signature, they just have no way of finding the balance. So they have to make a bunch of different assumptions in order to get to your funds. They have to know, okay, guy has, however many number of hardware wallets, and I know now that maybe some of his funds are on single sig, and I don't know, maybe some of them are on multi-sig. Then they have to guess that you're doing multi-sig with us versus Electrum or Casa or some other or Caravan, and then they have to hack your two-factor authentication. And even further than that, we have the ability to set verification thresholds on your vault. So if anyone tries to withdraw any, greater than X percent, whatever you set, 5%, 10% of the Bitcoin, we'll require them to film an identity video and spoof that as well before getting us to sign a transaction. So as I mentioned earlier, we have two-factor authentication. We have this identity video here.
I think I'm going to upload this whole video as my identity video.
Yeah, so you film a sort of baseline video where you say today's date, you give your full name, the account that you own, and at the time of transaction, if you try to withdraw greater than the threshold, it'll pop up a more recent video with the current date and the details about the transaction that then we will use before ever signing a transaction.
Cool. This is awesome. And what's funny is that like as much as this is a great avenue to kind of thwart an attack, like I think the biggest thing for, at least in my experience, because I know the pain of losing a key, is genuinely just in having one key lost that's just unrecoverable. Is to have essentially backups on top of backups. And I think that's what aside from the fact that it's a huge hurdle for any attacker to try to get to your coins, it's also a great way to make sure that if you lose one key, that the process by default always has another way out in that case, because you're gonna feel real bad when you're looking at those old balances and realize that you never did multi-sig or you never had proper backups.
Absolutely. We've created a lot of different redundancies and channels here. And it's funny, like a lot of times for Bitcoin operational security, we find that like we ourselves are our own worst OPSEC concerns, right? Like forgetting a passphrase, for example, or forgetting where you hid something, or forgetting how you constructed a given address is really, I think, where a majority of the lost Bitcoin has come from. So yeah, that's another thing is passphrases are good to use, are potentially good to use for single signature. We would say that for multi-signature, it's probably not necessary for most clients. It's hard to give general OPSEC advice for every single scenario, but those passphrases on those devices, if you don't have them, you don't have your private key anymore. It's gone. So forgetting passphrases is a really common way to lose private keys. So for multi-sig, we feel comfortable saying that for most people who are just setting it up to learn about it, you don't need to use your passphrase.
Yeah, that is how my that is the way. That is literally it. It was the use of a passphrase on top of a hardware wallet.
That's how you lost your keys?
A key was lost because I would say, like, I actually still do use it. But I would suggest if somebody did want to use it, because there is still a benefit, because like even if somebody got your keys and stuff off your Trezor, or whatever your device is, that they still technically can't get to your.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly a good idea if you're storing a majority of your funds on single signature. But because like if your recovery seed is recovered, like unless you have a passphrase on it, the adversary immediately has access to your funds, right? The passphrase is kind of another another way to thwart adversaries. But
another little barrier for them, but
right.
it's still a single point of, it's actually an
Exactly.
additional single point of failure
Right.
for a backup.
Right.
That's why I would recommend, if anybody ever did use it, it is a risk, but I would recommend use a memorable password. In fact, use something rather simple, because the way you have to type the things in, like it's they have like that they have like a little proof of work in it anyway. So if you like constantly type in wrong passwords, like it's really hard to
it
extends.
Yeah, extends the time.
So it's not a huge risk to use like a rather simple one.
Yeah.
And you can actually recover it unless you use something stupid like a 13 character randomized one and don't properly back it up, and then the coins are lost forever.
And they're gone. And then it's a donation to all the other holders of
donation.
Bitcoin. And we appreciate your donation.
I've made a solid donation to the entire ecosystem of Bitcoin.
Wonderful. All right. So what we'll do now, before we wrap up the demo, is we'll spend a transaction. I'll show you exactly how you spend transactions using multisig. So this vault, my family vault here, it has, just a few thousand sats in there. I got to start stacking a few more sats, I think, to pump up this vault. But we have the ability now to withdraw from the vault into any Bitcoin address. So, any single signature or exchange or whatever, you would go through withdraw. If you're using different financial services through Unchained Capital, this transfer button's nice because we'll just grab your most recent active address. So if you're moving from a vault to a loan, or from a vault to a vault, or a loan to a vault, you can use this transfer button, and you don't have to worry about copying and pasting the addresses. So we're going to send the total amount of our vault to the crypto economy vault that we just created.
Okay.
As you can see, the default fee rate to get into the next block is actually higher than the amount that we would be spending, because I only have a few thousand sats. So I have to set my fee rate to something really low because we're dealing with 3,000 Satoshis here. And I'm okay with waiting for this transaction to take a while to process. But this step should look relatively familiar to anyone who has sent a Bitcoin transaction. You just author your amount, set a fee rate, then you hit next, and here's where the fun starts. Is we get to choose who we want to sign a transaction. So we can choose to sign with our two keys, or we can select Unchained Capital to sign with Unchained Capital's keys. The way that Unchained signs is we sign once per day, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time. So we just ask that our clients get transaction requests in prior to 9 a.m. the same day. And we do that on purpose. Our goal is not to move quickly with this. In fact, we want to do the opposite. We want to move slowly. We are emailing you constantly throughout this process. Yeah, this is a vault. We've optimized for security over like fast transactions. But yeah, so if you are traveling or something and need us to sign, we can step in and we can do that. If you have your video verification set, you'll film it, and we'll review that, as well as be emailing you the entire time. Hey, you just authored a transaction. Hey, you just asked us to sign. Hey. So we're trying to contact our clients with as many channels as we have. But today we'll sign with our two keys. We'll create this transfer. The other big difference here between single sig and multi-sig is we break out the steps into individual pieces, right? So we've just now completed authoring a transaction. We've said we want to send 3,500 sats from Family Vault to Crypto Economy Vault. We want to pay this fee, and we want to sign with our two keys. And now we actually have to go through and gather our signatures. So I'll plug in what I hope is Gresham. Then what I'll do first is I'll check to make sure that I actually have plugged Gresham in instead of another key that I have. So we perform a quick key check, which is the same step that you've seen when we uploaded our XPubs. We're just exporting a single public key here. All right, and we successfully plugged in the right device. So now we can go through and actually sign the transaction. As you can see, Trezor understands that we're now asking it to sign a Bitcoin transaction as opposed to just export a public key. And then on my device, which I'll hold up to the screen here, you can see on my Trezor that the transaction details are appearing.
You'll see the same address and, confirm the.
So confirm sending 3,500 sats to 3QIJNFS. I just do the first, 6 or 7 digits and the last 6 or 7 digits.
I'll be big
but,
spending
yeah,
these.
For my few sats that I'm sending around today. If this was a larger transaction, of course, you take as much time as you need to confirm every digit. This is a good time to bring this up as well. But I'm spending my total massive balance of 3,500 sats. If I wasn't spending the whole balance, then some Bitcoin would be returned to the change address in Family Vault, which you can view here and confirm that you own with Caravan. Right. So for our clients who are dealing with large sums of Bitcoin and are making transactions, like this is a nice tool for them at this point in time before actually broadcasting anything to confirm that they own the change address, or confirm that two of the public keys used to construct the change address are held by these devices.
Nice.
The other thing to keep in mind is, so now we have one valid signature. But I'm a good, I have really good OPSEC, and so I've stored my keys geographically separated. Now I can log out and I can take my computer to my secret underground bunker, or if I have my laptop in my underground bunker already, I go there, I grab my second key, I log back in, and I can complete the transfer. You don't have to have both of your devices in the same location at the same time to complete transactions. This is also really useful for our business clients or our trust clients, where you might have multiple owners or multiple people who have keys. This is where you could call up your partner. They could log in, sign with their key. So there's no time limit here. And then at any time you can cancel the transfer. So if you've messed up any of the authoring details, you can cancel it, start over. What we recommend is that if you've already signed this transaction with even one key, it's good to complete a transaction. So author a new transaction, send it to a new address, but complete a transaction if you have already signed or
just because you've got a partially signed thing sitting exposed, essentially, to, well, not really
correct,
exposed, but to some degree. Yeah,
we store it very securely on our servers, and we wipe all that information afterwards. But that is a small gap, right? It's a small little gap in OPSEC that you want to make sure to get through in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll plug in Zuckerlander now and go through this step a little bit quicker. So I'm using 2 Trezors today. If you were using your Ledger, you would plug in your Ledger and you'd see the address details show up there. So I'm first checking to make sure that I've plugged in Zuckerlander. Then I'm going to sign. And once again, on my device, I can see the transaction showing up. I can review it. Looks good, and confirm. So you asked this, I think, earlier in our demo, but what happens if you've asked Unchained Capital to sign? Well, we would go through and we would review all of the information that you provided us and try to get in contact with you to confirm. And then when we sign with our signature, our key, we will then not broadcast the transaction. So we always push that responsibility back to our clients. So right now, for example, we have a completely signed Bitcoin transaction stored on the Unchained Capital servers, but nothing has been broadcast to the network yet. The launch the missile button is still our client's responsibility for pressing. So we've entered our 2 keys at the same time, and we've unlocked it, and we've opened the switch.
Waiting for you to ignite.
Yeah. And then when we're ready to launch, we hit broadcast. And this is what, so then we propagate this transaction via our full node that we run to the rest of the network. And almost immediately, this transaction is going to show up on everybody's full node around the world. All tens to hundreds of thousands of them are going to see this transaction showing up. It's unconfirmed. The miners need to get out there and hash some electricity in order to confirm the transaction, but all the nodes are seeing it already. And then if we hop into our new vault, the Cryptoconomy vault here, you can see that we have a pending deposit of 3,500 sats.
35. Nice.
Yeah.
A question, is there ever going to be, I feel like down the road, something along these lines, but I don't know if y'all have any explicit plans to do batching or aggregation, or take advantage of like something like uh, Schnorr signature aggregation. I know that's many years away. But regardless, are y'all planning on doing any of that as far as like batch transactions to offer lower fees in the future and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at we of course will be using Schnorr and Beck32 when they come out, or not Beck32, Schnorr and Taproot,
Taproot,
when
yeah.
they come out. We're in the process of modernizing the address to Beck32 and forming standards there. Caravan is a really good proving ground for our engineers to be testing out all this new functionality, and then once it's been vetted in open source world, then we can move it into our vaults. So a lot of the functionality that you see showing up in Caravan is going to be showing up later down the road in our vaults. So yes, I guess we don't have any immediate plans to implement them, but as they are rolled out and as the upgrades are completed, our engineers are already researching Schnorr and Taproot and are working with the Austin Bitcoin developers meetup group to kind of plan out how that's going to function. And it's going to be very different. Taproot in particular changes how multi-sig works substantially. So we have to think through how we're going to engineer using the latest and greatest. But that's the demo. I think the last few things before we wrap up. Once per quarter. So we believe that operational security is an active process. So we email clients once per quarter to log in and perform a key check. Log in, make sure you still have control of your device, your secure locations haven't been compromised. You get your devices upgraded to the most recent firmware so that any bugs that have been found have been patched on the devices. We view that as part of a healthy OPSEC, is checking periodically that you still have totally functional tools. And then finally, for our business clients or clients who are interested in potentially using vaults as like a self-directed IRA or as a retirement account, we do offer monthly vault statements. So I'm just hopping into my business vault here, which I made a transaction from it earlier, so you can see that there's a transfer in progress. But we have monthly statements that we generate at the end of each month that show the flows of Bitcoin in and out of the vault. So this is really nice, as I said, for those business clients or for clients that are interested in using vaults for like self-directed IRAs or something like that. This is just nice. It's kind of our name saying like, yep, this is the client name, this is their vault, and here's exactly what happened with it. So it's really nice for reporting.
Sweet. Yeah, that's really cool because I'm actually doing this through my business account. I'm trying to figure out exactly how to get it set up because I want it to be a situation where my business is paying for is basically setting up an IRA, a retirement in like a savings plan for myself and my wife, our employees, in Bitcoin. So that'll be really interesting because this is what I'm using this for. I didn't know I was going to have easier reporting if I end up going that route. So that's good.
Yeah, that's a perfect use case, and we've helped a bunch of clients out with running their retirement through these vaults. So the way that you would do that, and as you mentioned, you set up a sort of a business entity for that. You would onboard your business entity and go through the like business KYC AML process, and then you're able to upload new keys or use keys that you've already uploaded to build a specific vault.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. Thanks for walking through all this stuff with me. I may actually end up cutting this into 3 different videos, doing the vault setup, doing the Caravan, and then doing the sending the transaction from the vault.
Yeah, we went a little long today, but I think we had a good time.
So yeah. That's the whole point of this. I wanna play with all the toys.
Yeah.
All right, dude.
Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for hopping on this call. I'll stop recording and then we can do a quick recap.
All right.
Awesome.